Hey everyone, this is Dan from Pixabyte. Today I'm speaking with Richard Boozer from Sparpweed about their upcoming game Ibanob. Thanks for taking the time to be here with us today, Richard.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
So tell me, how would you describe Ibanob to somebody who's never heard of the game before?
Well, first of all, it's a two-player game. It's a cooperative two-player platform game. So the focus of the whole game is about two people playing together and really working together to solve puzzles and to make progress in this game world. But the most specific thing about the world that they're in is that it's split in two, and the bottom half has gravity reversed.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned the co-op. Will the game be only co-op focused, or is there a type of single-player mode?
The game is really co-op focused. So what we've done is that the main game mode is two-player co-op, and the release version will only have local co-op at first. And we're working on the online component as well. But what we haven't done is created a single-player mode which has like artificial intelligence for a second player, because it will always be not as much fun as having a real friend next to you and playing together. But we do offer a single-player mode, which is basically sort of a challenge mode where you control both players simultaneously, which is for those who really want an extra challenge. But it's not a standard mode. It's more like an extra thing.
Okay, almost like challenge levels to go along with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any kind of storyline that goes along with the game Ibanob?
There sort of is, but it's not the focus of the game, and we won't tell the story by using cutscenes or using a written text in between. There is a story, and the players will kind of make sense of that, but they will do by just playing through the whole game, and they'll note the atmosphere throughout the game will change, and there's different elements that will be introduced in the game that will make clear to the players that something weird is happening, and yeah, it's like a subtle layer in the game.
Okay. So where did the idea for Ibanob come from?
It doesn't have a really nice story. Like, I walked through the woods and I had this amazing revelation when I saw this weird combination of trees, or etc. It just it came from a first sketch where I draw a line, and I had both players on, actually I had one player which bumped into this world, or bumped into this line, and then another player on the other side got his momentum, I'd say. So it had sort of this double gravity thing, and then from there I started to iterate. I took that as the starting point, and I built the first really rough prototype actually back then in the Unreal Engine, and that prototype looked really crappy. But it already had these two directions of gravity, and I could float through these two directions with my Unreal military robot. But he just floated through these two directions of gravity, and it already felt nice. And so from there, I started iterating and added more game mechanics, and finally ended up what you've probably seen in the trailer.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned the robot during the prototype. That's something
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about. When it started out in the prototype, it was resembling more of a robotic type character, and slowly morphed into the pink and green characters that we have now.
Yeah.
What made you decide to move towards the more simplistic character design?
Well, from the start, I knew that I definitely wanted a really different look for the game than the Unreal Engine gave me. But I wanted to focus on game design first. It's pretty easy to add a nice visual layer to a game in the end, but the other way around is totally impossible. It's not the way I want to work. So you cannot create this really beautiful visual image of a game and then at the end try to make it fun. So I did it the other way around. So it stayed really ugly for a long time through the development process. And then I slowly started to think about how this game should look. And I knew I wanted two characters. They shouldn't look like real world figures, not animals, not humans.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted them to be something iconic, which would allow players themselves to sort of connect to it. Like, they can make up whether Ibn are girls or guys or whether they're old or small or big, or there's no real hints to that.
Okay, so that's up to the player's imagination.
Yeah,
And then
that-
your creative process was basically to design the mechanics of the game and then do the art style and, the character looks and stuff like that thereafter.
yeah, totally.
Okay. Would you say any other games influenced the design of Ibanab? And if so, which games would that be?
I played a lot of games together with my brother when we were young, and there were not a lot of two-player co-op things that I remember. And I remember Altered Beast for the Sega Mega Drive,
Okay.
which was it wasn't that good a game, but I clearly remember that playing it together was so much more fun, and I had so much fun doing that together with him. So I knew that sort of that couch feeling, like playing with a friend or a family, playing one game and really getting into that. I knew I wanted that in the game. And then there's, for example, Katamari Damacy, which is a game for me that clearly builds on one really strong game mechanic and creates this totally weird and brilliant world around it with crazy music and brilliant visuals. And I kind of like that way of designing. So focusing on one game mechanic, in Ibanab's case, that's the double gravity, and then building a whole special world around that.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely seems like it's going to be a unique experience. All right. Well, now we have a few questions from our viewers, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Alpha Omega would like to know which character is Ib and which character is Ob, and what made you decide to name them Ib and Ob.
Okay. The easy one. Ib is the small one, and Ob is the larger one. It's mainly chosen that way because Ib sounds a bit smaller than Ob, of course. And the names, they're sort of a tribute to two characters in a book by Jasper Forde. It's a book which it's a writer whose work I really like, and these two characters are they're not main characters in one of his novels, but they're sort of on the side. But I really like them, and the nice thing about them is that they start out as non-defined characters, as generics. They don't have a sex, or they don't even have a uppercase character at the start of their name. And slowly throughout the story, they get all these things. So they develop into real characters. And I kind of like that idea for game characters as well. So they start out sort of really bland, and people themselves, or the players themselves, can create the story around them.
Okay.
So that's it's a tribute.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay, next up, Maverick07 asked, what's the story behind your development company's name, Sparpweed?
Actually, that's also interesting. A friend of mine, he had this word Sparpweed underneath his like his Gmail name, where you can put, like, for example, I'm busy, blah blah blah. He put Sparpweed there, and I was like, what is that? And then after a while, I asked him, and it sort of how to put it. It's warp speed, but then written differently, and it kind of got stuck. And that was in the same time as me and Roland were looking for a name for the studio we wanted to start, and it was 1 out of 5 potential candidates, and I don't know, it just stuck.
Okay, that's definitely interesting. And our last viewer question is from DZ, who is curious about how much Ibn Ab is going to cost upon release.
Okay, well, nothing is set in stone here, but we aim at around $10.
Okay.
I think,
all right, real quick before we go, when can we expect to see a release date for Ibn Ab, and what platforms will it be coming to?
We'll release on PSN first. We hope to do so the second quarter this year. We're quite far with all the content for the game, but still some last level design that needs finishing, and then the whole game needs to get tested, etc., etc. And I don't know how long that actually is going to take. So second quarter this year, and then a few months later, we want to release on Steam for PC. And that version will also have online multiplayer, and we'll patch the PlayStation version with online multiplayer as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's-
Well, that brings us to the end of our interview. I'd like to thank Richard for taking the time to be here with us today.
oh, thanks, Dan.
This is Dan from Pixabyte. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.